coming up on this episode of the Awake and Aware podcast.
When people hear of addiction, they think drugs, alcohol. It's almost like gambling is like this third party aspect. Well, a lot of people don't really pay much attention to it.
But the issue with gambling is that it's an industry that's stacked against you from the get-go. When you're young, you don't realize that. I looked at gambling as a tool to get rich, an industry that is preying on me, trying to get every single dollar out of me. From the advertising, like all the ads, you know, it's always at the footy with your mates, drinking beers. Like it just hones in on that early 20s.
Talk to me about your sort of upbringing.
And then I had my sister Chloe. My sister Chloe passed away in 2011. So I was 15 at the time. She was 10.
Welcome back to the Awake and Aware podcast. Today we're bringing back for number 9, which is super exciting and one more away from the double digit, which is a huge milestone in the podcast community. Before I wanted to touch on anything today, I just wanted to say thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up. This space is a platform to talk about all things mental health, addictions, what we've come through, our triumphs, you know, the things we learn and grow and develop as a human. And if you're listening to this today, congratulate yourself for stepping into the space. You're obviously someone who, you know, wants to develop, wants to grow, or even just a bit of insight into conversations around males and how we can develop as humans and crush the stigma what is surrounding us, what is taking almost 8 men a day commit suicide. And my passion is to help you. And I think talking about my experiences as well, it sort of creates a bit of relatability. And, you know, thank you for leaning into yourself today. A big step in your growth and development is having awareness and taking responsibility for anything in your life. You know, this space it's rewarding. And I think the last few weeks, even on my own sort of journey, I've been doing a lot more reflection, a lot more realizations, a lot more growing and developing, listening to more content, leaning into the space a little bit heavier. A few things have been coming up lately, and you know, we're all human and we all go through our own sort of struggles and triumphs, and you are too. So if you're someone who's wanting to develop, congratulate yourself. It is a huge step. Now, today's guest I have, we're becoming quite close recently, which is super, super awesome. I love connecting with people, and I love developing new networks, relationships, friendships. At the end of the day, we're all here to support each other. My guest today, he's done a lot. His story is inspiring, and to see where he's come from, it's that seed of hope, and you know that bit of faith that things do get better. So I think if you're listening into this today, right now, you're going to have an absolute cracker episode ahead of you. So, Jack, thank you for coming on today, brother.
Mate, thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely, man. And, you know, your resume, getting to know you over the past, you know, little while, it's sort of been stepping into your space and noticing the things you do, and, you know, it's super inspiring. I know you and I, we've had some conversations around some topics, which will be the first today, which is super, super exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, thank you for leaning in today and creating the space for everyone.
Yeah, of course, mate. I'm so glad I was able to come on, and we haven't known each other for very long, but let's get it going.
Yeah, man, sweet. So I guess beginning at the start, I think I like to create a bit of context for my listeners.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your sort of upbringing. Were you a local boy? What was the sort of direction you wanted to take from your life at a very young age?
Yeah, so I grew up, I'd say I had a pretty ordinary upbringing in Brisbane. Mum and dad, and then I had my sister Chloe. My sister Chloe passed away in 2011. So I was 15 at the time. She was 10. But up until then, it was really just an ordinary kind of upbringing. We went to a great school, had lots of great friends. And once that kind of happened in 2011 with her passing, I kind of consider my life before 2011 and then after 2011. And that period was a massive blur. But up until then, I'd say it was a pretty ordinary upbringing. And childhood was really into arts as a kid, was really into, not really an academic until my later years of school. But, you know, played a bit of sport as well, AFL, did lots of swimming. So I'd just say it was your quintessential Brisbane boy upbringing.
Nice, man. Yeah, it's funny. I grew up in Brisbane as well. So I sort of get the lifestyle. And, you know, when you said that pivotal point was from when your sister passed until, you know, you sort of had like almost two separate lives almost. Talk to me about the situation after that. How did that unfortunately come about?
Yeah. So she passed away from a really rare brain tumor, and it wasn't cancerous, but basically what happened was when she turned around 10, we started to notice that her vision was going funny. She was complaining of headaches, so it was really out of the blue. There wasn't a real ramp up to it. It kind of just slapped us all in the face. And so what happened was we ended up taking her to the hospital and her getting a brain scan, and then in the space of like a day, everything really changed. So she got diagnosed with craniopharyngioma is the condition, and basically a tumour growing from when you're born right behind your eyes on your pituitary gland, which is has a lot to do with your hormones. And yeah, it just grows from birth and gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until at a certain point you start to notice symptoms. So it goes unnoticed for a really long time. And so, yeah, it came out of the blue. And when I was 15, I just remember getting called to the hospital and getting told, and that whole period is a massive blur. Like I can remember little fragments of sitting in the doctor's office getting told, and mum and dad kind of explaining it to me in lay terms because I was 15, so I didn't know really what was happening. But yeah, I just remember little cuts of 2011 and being that age, which is really odd now to look back on because it's just this like montage of really horrible times essentially. And only now I'm kind of piecing it all back together, and only now I'm having vulnerable conversations with my parents being like, hey, we need to have a sit down and like piece that all back together, because you know when you're younger it's harder to remember things. I can remember things from 5 years ago very clearly, but going back 12 years ago is really difficult. So after that all happened, it kind of just changed the roadmap of my life in a sense, and there was just a couple years of blurriness and grieving after she passed away eventually from the condition. So yeah, it was a really, really strange, odd time of my life. It kind of feels like it was a dream, but it kind of shaped who I am today. So not that I'm grateful for it essentially per se, but I wouldn't be who I am without that experience. So I think it's kind of molding a terrible situation to shape you and to help you grow. So, yeah.
Think about that, hey?
Yeah.
It's sort of like the yin and the yang, I guess, to a certain degree. You know, we all have some things that go through us, whether it be traumatic, whether we have an upset into our, life, whether it be going down a difficult path. But all those things in the moment, we don't realize it until, right now, you are the person you're meant to be right in this second, and so am I. So is everyone listening. So is everyone outside the space as well. Yeah,
and I think when that all happened, it's hard to look into the future of, how am I going to reflect back on this experience? Because when you're in the moment, especially when I was 15, and going through all this grieving, all you're worrying about at that time is how you're getting through it and what's your coping mechanism and, how do you get to the other side? But then when you're able to reflect 10 plus years later, you pick out all the beautiful things that came from it, which is so strange.
It's like the rose petals, hey?
Yeah, it's like how does that massive traumatic event create such beautiful moments in the same space? But that can happen with the death of a family member or a breakup or coming out of addiction and what you learn from that, or there's little things you can pick out that help you learn and grow. And I think once you learn from that the first couple times that you stumble or fail or go through grieving, you're ready for it in the future, and you go, okay, there's a tough moment coming up soon, but if I do the right things, I'll pick some gold from it in the future. If that makes sense.
It's like those little golden nuggets, hey?
Yeah.
That's sort of funny. Not that I can relate to in the sense that I had a family member die, but probably around the 2011 mark. What are we now? 22? Yeah, probably almost around the same time frame. My mum was diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah.
I think I was 9 at the time, whatever it was. Coming home from school, asking my mum if she's going to die, and having that as your default thought as soon as you wake up, as soon as you go to bed, as soon as even just throughout the day. I think my downward spiral started from that situation.
Yeah,
at 9 years old, you don't really have the understanding of life at all.
Yeah,
Right.
you don't grasp the reality.
No, exactly right.
Yeah.
I think, you know, that sent me down a spiral massively, which is a conversation maybe for a different day.
Yeah.
But, you know, picking out those gold nuggets, it's like mum's gotten through it and she's made the recovery, and I think I idolize her a little bit more. I appreciate her a little bit more because there was a period of time where the tomorrow wasn't promised.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think like those gold nuggets, those rose petals, it comes into play with everything, with our growth and our development.
Yeah, and vulnerability strengthens connections as well. Like my family...
It's a gateway to growth, hey?
Yeah, like my family growing up, we were close, as any family is, but now, like me, mum and dad, we are really close. And that's really beautiful, and that all was born out of tragedy and misery and trauma and grief. But now, you know, 12 years on, we're all so close, and we're getting more vulnerable as time goes on as well, because I feel like we're now coming out of that grieving stage. We're in acceptance now, which took so long, free. And grieving never stops. You'll always have that wound in your heart for what happened, but now being on the other side of it to acceptance and actually being able to stop and check in with each other and be like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
Like, let's debrief on that. And that's something that I'm really interested in doing over the next couple of years, like really kind of coming back to that and wrapping up what that period was to us as a family.
So would you say, as 12 years on, when you say you're wanting to wrap it up, do you think there's still elements where you haven't healed from, or you haven't sort of like completely come to terms with it all? I
think as time goes on, you discover new aspects of the grief that you haven't healed from. Yeah. So it's kind of like you fix one thing, or you heal from one thing, and then something else shows up, and then you heal from that. And as life changes, like I've thought about this, like I really want to have kids one day, and I can tell that when I have a kid, there's going to be a lot of fear over that kid getting sick or injured or dying. Because of the fear that my parents had and the grief that I saw through my parents of losing their child. So it shows up in different ways as you grow and your priorities change and you kind of navigate through life. So there is definitely still things that I'm working through, but I just think I'm working through them in much healthier ways now. And I have the tools, like I've got the toolkit now to be like, okay, I'm feeling this. Instead of suppressing it or projecting on somebody else or escaping, running away, I can tackle it head on, which is a really powerful position to be in. It's very empowering, and you're using what you've learned from the past to help like navigate through your future. Yeah,
for sure. I think everything, there's always something to learn from every situation, right?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, with you saying you're in the healthy space, if you learn to develop a lot better in healthier ways. It's sort of like the cow and the bison theory. When there's a storm coming, a cow will always run away to try and get away from the storm. But if you're a bison, you run head on to the storm, and it passes you a lot quicker. You know, and I think that's a really beautiful way to think about it.
I've never heard of that analogy, but I love it.
Yeah,
and man. It's so true. You know, because either way, you can use healthy ways, you can use unhealthy ways to navigate through a tough time.
Yeah.
But you're right. If you use the healthy ways, I can probably guarantee 9 times out of 10 you're going to get through that quicker and out the other side in a better headspace than if you run away from it.
It might be a little bit, you know, more tougher to go into things head first. You know, it's like, say for the cow, for instance, running away from it, like that's the price of inaction.
Yeah.
You're running away from it.
Absolutely.
And I think when you're faced with different, you know, sort of triumphs, or you're faced with adversity, you have 2 ways to go about it. You can either let it defeat you or you can let it fuel you.
Yeah.
And I think the second option will always be the more healthy one. Yeah,
and it's kind of like that discussion of, you know, victim mentality, and you can either let something in your life, and this isn't to say that things can't hurt you or that, you know, you've got to just like put on a brave face and just, you know, toughen up and get through it. Like there's always going to be things that are really difficult in life that kind of knock you off your feet.
Yeah.
But you can either be a victim to it and let it beat you down, or like I said before, you can mold it and grow from it. But I think in a way you've also got to go through the experience of learning what that's like the first time. Everyone's got their first little bit of adversity in life, And with me, for example, with Chloe, my sister, passing away, that adversity was like 10 out of 10 slap in the face at 15. Whereas some people might hit that at 40 or 50 or 60. So that experience, I had no prior learning to get me through that. I just had to kind of just raw dog it and just go along with it. But now from that, I now know how to use the tools to get through it and not play the victim, and let it mold me and help me grow.
It's kind of like sink or swim, hey?
Yeah, it is.
In your face.
Especially the first time, and you do. You either sink or you swim. I'm not sure if I sank or I'm not sure if I swam, but I got out the other side, and now I can reflect 12 years down the track, and I'm really kind of proud of where I am now.
100%.
Yeah.
How was life after Chloe passing?
Yeah.
In the sense of, family life, how did it absolutely rock you guys as a family as a whole, or was it still like, the pat on the back every day, like it's going to get better? Yeah,
I've got to give a massive kudos to my parents for dealing with that. I said this to my mum the other week. We were in the car, and I just said, I just want to let you know that I'm really proud of you guys for going through that, the loss of a child, and then you still had another kid to deal with. Like, how's Jack getting to school? We got to feed him. We still got to go to work to pay the mortgage. Like, I'm like, I never felt like my needs weren't met. There was obviously a priority with Chloe, but they were so good at always making sure, like, what do you need? How can we support you? Which was so helpful as a 15-year-old. When you're seeing your parents cry, you're like, what the hell's going on? Like, you've got no idea, and it does rock you. But they really kind of took care of me. It doesn't mean there weren't after effects from the passing. It definitely rocked my parents. They've gone through their own ways of grief, just like I did. And it did take some time. It took many, many years. She passed away on Christmas Eve, so Christmas became really, really different for us from 2010 to 2011. Chloe was with us for Christmas in 2010. She wasn't with us for Christmas 2011. Like, that's such a drastic difference. So, life really changed, and just the way it looked a couple of years after was really, really strange and took a lot of getting used to. So I'd say for probably the 5 years post her passing were really just horrible, to be completely honest.
I don't think there's any other way to put it.
Like, and I think we all kind of, even though we stayed close as a family, we all kind of were in our own little pockets doing what we needed to do. Like, I can only speak for myself, but I became really driven by perfectionism as a coping mechanism. And people say perfectionism, you don't be a perfectionist, it'll ruin your life and it's all about control. But that was my coping mechanism at the time, and that actually served me really well. I did really well in school, year 11 and 12, which got me a great exit score. I got into a great music theatre school because I worked hard and went away and was able to study there for 3 years. I was just kind of became a bit of a perfectionist, but it kind of served me at the time. So in a way, I'm really grateful that I had that to keep me busy. But yeah, so it kind of, it did rock us for a few years after, but it kind of set us on our own little paths, and definitely I went down the perfectionism route.
I mean, it's probably not a bad thing to go down.
No, it's not. It's not.
You could have gone a whole different route.
That's right, yeah. And it, I could have, shut down and gone through that kind of victim mentality, but I just decided to just take it and run and go after what I wanted. And in a way too, I moved away after school, so down to Victoria. So in a way, I look back at that and I was like, you were running away.
Yeah.
Like
to a degree, I think.
And I didn't think that at the time.
Yeah, of course.
I was like, no, I want to go and study interstate. Like, that'd be a great opportunity. And it was, and I'm not saying that it wasn't, but it was very much like, okay, we've gone through this traumatic event. Now it's time for me to like spread my wings and go and forge my own path.
Was there ever a thought of, I want to do this in her legacy?
Yeah, the night before she passed away, so we knew she was getting to the end. It kind of went really downhill leading up to Christmas. A couple of days before, I was Christmas light looking with my girlfriend at the time. Got home, and so Chloe was staying at home at our house. My mum's a nurse, so she was caring for her in the last couple months of her life, and so it was Chloe in the bedroom. And
How old was she at the time?
10. Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
and she and mum and dad said, this is probably your last chance to say something, and that was, I can still remember that really, really clearly, even though a lot of it was a blur. And I went into her room, and it was just me and her, and I just laid down beside her, and I said to her, it's actually really, really beautiful. I said, the first things I said to her was, I'm sorry for pushing off the trampoline when we were younger, you know, apologise.
I don't know if I can laugh at that.
Yeah, I know. It's you know, it's that silly kid stuff.
Yeah,
you know?
of course,
and,
man.
And you don't want to live on with regret. So I was like,
No.
I'm just going to say sorry for everything I ever did to you, as a brother, as an annoying older brother. But then it got down to it, and I just told her that I'm gonna live life like doubly as good, if that makes sense.
That's
for
really
the
beautiful,
both of us.
man.
Yeah. And there's been times where I've strayed off that path, but that legacy and that moment with her has always kind of brought me back onto the path. And I don't think of it as an overall kind of conscious thought. I think it's very subconscious. But that moment of, I'm gonna like live my life to the fullest, because you now don't get the chance to continue that life. So that was a big thing. Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, because I haven't really thought about that in a long time. But it's definitely a legacy thing. I think going forward into the future and just wanting to just live my life to the fullest and make the most out of life. And it taught me so much about the finite nature of life too. Like it can be taken from you in a second. So I learned very quickly and at a very young age just to grab life with both hands and fucking like gun it and run for it. Yeah.
Wow, man, that's gonna take a little bit of time to sink in. Fuck.
Yeah.
That's I think the vision I have when you talk about that, it's like holding a cloak over someone, like just putting them under your arm, you know, like just safeguarding them, and
yeah.
you know, it's like you're spreading your wing over them.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. It was a really, really beautiful moment, and I'm so grateful I had that moment too, because lots of people don't get a chance to say goodbye, or you know, you come home and that's it and it's done. There's so many regrets with, I didn't get to say this, I didn't get to say that. But so one beautiful thing out of that tragic time and that tragic moment was you got to have that moment in that room with her and lay it all out on the table, tell her how much you love her. And I think that kind of transfers across to like everyday life, like telling your mates you love them. You know, I love telling my mates I love them.
Dude.
And I don't care if they feel uncomfortable about it either. I'm like, man, I bloody love you.
I'll do it 3 times in a sentence. I don't care.
Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of my mates, we do like on the phone, like we'll be like, all right, mate, got to go.
Dude,
love ya.
every phone call, I'm like, I love you, brother.
Yeah.
Like, I fucking love you, man.
Yeah.
And even, you know, I'll do it until they say it back.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll scream down the phone, dude, tell me you love me.
Yeah.
I think it's a really healthy way to communicate.
Yeah. And it's funny doing it to your big macho mates too, and they do the, love you, dude.
Yeah, love it, mate. Yeah. But, man, I think we need that.
Yeah, we do.
I think, you know, we need a lot of more men telling each other they love each other.
Yeah.
You know, like, if I've met you for the first fucking time, I'll tell you I love you, you know? And I think that's what we need to be doing more as a community and as a society, is just spreading that love, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, and men versus women, we've got less social connections in the grand scheme of things. If you were to average it out, like women are so good at just having little circles of friends, and they're so great at talking about their emotions. And not to say there's men that don't do that, but as a whole, there's a lot of work to do on that sort of thing, and men can become really isolated, and I've seen it, and it's really dangerous. So I think just it's getting better progressively, and you're hearing it more, and we're talking about it more. So yeah, we're definitely going in the right direction, but yeah, needs more.
Loneliness can be dangerous, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think people can become addicted to it.
Yeah.
I know I have.
Yeah, and
sure.
it's easy and it's comfortable.
It is.
You know, it's easy not to reach out. But sometimes you just need that little push, and then you get that positive feedback loop. Oh, I reached out, and now I'm meeting with new people. I'm having these beautiful conversations, and that feeds into itself, you know. But if you're never getting there and never kind of crossing that threshold into being vulnerable, then you'll never know what you're missing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like that. Just so like those 1%ers,
Yeah.
like a simple message, you know, and just I love you on the phone.
Yeah.
It goes so far.
Yeah.
Was music theatre ever a big part of your direction in life from a young age?
Yeah, I kind of feel like growing up, probably around that age of a little bit before 15, so probably 13, 14, I was dabbling, and I loved to sing. My school in Brisbane was a really big art school, so it was very encouraged, and kind of talent was nurtured really, really well at that school. And then it kind of just became like a matter of, I'm all right at this, I could make this a career. And then I had teachers saying, you know, if you audition for full-time schools, you should be able to get into one, and then you can really hone your craft, and then make it a career. And it was when they said that, I was like, oh, okay. Because it was kind of before that, it was, you know, I'll just see where I end up. I had an interest in paramedics or something in the health field. But then once a couple of teachers said, no, you can make an actual career out of this, I think I kind of got that idea in my head and really started to gun for it. And then once I got into a school, that was my pathway, and I really wanted to make it a career, and I did, which I'm really fortunate to say.
How did that look like for you? The getting to school, the study, how did that look?
You mean for like university?
Yeah.
Yeah, so auditioned for schools around the country, got into a school in Ballarat, the Ballarat Academy of Performing Arts. It's not named that anymore. I think it's Fed Uni Arts Academy now. But yeah, that's a 3-year bachelor course. You don't really go for the degree. You go for the training. It's 5 days a week, pretty intensive. And yeah, did that for 3 years. And then at the end of that stage, you do like showcases for agents and things like that. And then hopefully an agent picks you up, and then those agents then send you to audition. So that's kind of the general flow of how that works. And then was lucky enough to get an agent, and then moved to Melbourne, and then started auditioning for shows in Australia and for gigs overseas. And I've been really lucky enough to work on cruise ships. I've performed on stages in Australia, performed at the Sydney Opera House. Really amazing places. Like, I kind of look back and I'm like, oh my God, you like from a schoolboy until, you know, performing at the Opera House, or, you know, performing overseas in Alaska and the States and the Mediterranean, and being in Spain and Italy and France. And looking back at that now, I'm like, you did it. Like, that was your dream. And I always said, I just want to, as long as I can make a buck, travel and perform, I'll be happy. I don't care what I'm doing. And that's what I did. So yeah, it's been amazing, and provided me with so many beautiful opportunities, and like the people you meet as well in that industry, like amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's traveling is like one of the things like I'll always be so grateful I did.
Yeah.
And it's weird. I don't know if you experienced it, but when you like went away traveling and come back, everyone was still sort of doing the same thing, and you just like lived this whole entire life. It was sort of it was weird to come back to for me. You know, I was away for 16 months, whatever it was.
Yeah.
I come back and everyone's doing the same thing, and it's like, I think I'm going to be vulnerable here.
Yeah.
I come back with my ego is hurt when I come home.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I, you know, haven't seen everyone for like, you know, almost 2 years or so, and I come back to the country and I'm expecting everyone to be like, oh my God, it's so good to fucking see you, fuck, you know?
Yeah.
It wasn't like that.
Yeah, I know exactly how you feel.
There was like, you know, of course, when you see people for the first time in almost 2 years, like, oh my God, like, how was it?
Yeah.
But it's not this like flash mob type thing, what you're sort of expecting, or what you have the vision in your head.
Yeah, it's weird. I can relate to that in my sense, but what happened with me was the first couple of times I went away on cruise contracts, I was only away for 6 months. And we were all kind of like 21, 22, 23. So a lot more time in people's schedule. We were all single. So every time I came back home, it was like, Jack's back, let's party. And it was like, it's so good for your ego, because you're like, yes, dude, like I've got massively. The best mates. And it pumps you up. And then, you know, a couple of years go past. Then I went back recently for 2 years. I was away for 2 years straight. And then I came back and everyone's like 27 and they're settling down and they've got partners and they're, you know, really in the midst of their, you know, career grind, which is totally fair. And I'm like, where's the party?
Yeah, you know? Like you sort of missed that chapter.
Yeah. And that can be really debilitating, because you get back and everything's the same, but so much is different as well. It's really disorientating. Dude. And I've spoken to a lot of people that have felt that when they've come back from overseas. especially for a longer period of time. It's like almost this like disorientation depression where
Yes.
your life is just like, you have this fantasy of what your life looks like when you get back. And then you get back and you're like, wait, this is nowhere near what I thought it was going to be. And I think like dealing with that change can really kind of throw you. So yeah, I did experience that as well.
That's so funny.
You're not alone in that thought.
Dude,
yeah.
I haven't spoken about that a lot. But I guess, we're all trying to learn. But yeah, that sort of hit me for a little bit.
Yeah.
It's sort of wild to think, we have this made up perception in our mind of what everyone's going to think of us when we get back and whatever else. But I think, we all need to be humbled sometimes.
Yeah.
And, I think it's probably a good thing. It's
Exactly.
probably a good thing that I didn't get a flash mob up to me, otherwise...
Yeah, it keeps you in check a little bit, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
And I think, we all need those sort of small moments. It doesn't matter who you are, right?
Yeah.
Was travelling always a thing you want to do? Like, was that always at the top of your bucket list?
To be honest, no. But it was an opportunity that was provided to me when I 1 year out of university. I was given I was offered a contract to go over to the Mediterranean on a cruise ship. But as soon as I did travel, it just sparked it. It was like bang.
The bug.
It kind of, unleashed it all for me. So then I got a real taste of that. And then I went on to do 3 more cruise contracts. So I must have loved it because, it's not easy. Some people don't really like it. Being away from home, if you've got relationships and things, it can be really difficult. But yeah, once I went away the first time, it kind of cracked it open for me. And I'm so glad that happened because I would hate to think that I wouldn't have caught that bug and I'd just be chilling at home, for the past 7 years or so. So yeah, I'm really grateful that provided me the opportunity to get out and see the world.
I think it's a great thing to see the world as well too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Traveling and working, that's a golden ticket.
Yeah, it's a dream.
It is.
Yeah.
I think, do you think your traveling days are over?
I definitely feel like I want to settle myself a bit more than before. I'm 27 now, so I'm kind of I'm finishing off my physio degree, and I really want to get cracking on that because I can't just keep doing one semester then pissing off overseas and coming back and pissing off overseas. It's too disjointing. I want a bit of momentum. Definitely not over, but really happy just having my feet on Australian soil. Loving living life on the Gold Coast. Like the active lifestyle here is insanely good.
It's mental, man.
Yeah, and just like really happy just where I am at the moment. But I'll never close the door on it, especially when the opportunity is kind of always there. I can always, shoot off an email and say, hey, you got any contracts going on? Because I've worked for 2 cruise companies now, so I can send either one of those an email and just see what they've got going. So the temptation is always there for sure. But yeah, really happy just where I am now.
I think, we all need to be grounded at some point too, and spending some time home. Like me traveling, I'll book a flight tomorrow, but I could never move away anymore. I think because I'm building this foundation, it's like it'd be a disservice to myself and my dreams and my, and my goals.
Absolutely.
And you were away for quite a bit of time.
Yeah.
We've had a few conversations in between you leaving school and your travelling sort of career. You went through a bit of a dark past.
Yeah.
Sort of a dark path, I should say. Touch on that.
Yeah. So when I got out of university, I did a 1 year and I was working full time as a performer. And it was the first time in my life that I had money flowing in. As I said at the start of this chat, like I kind of grew up in middle class sort of family. My parents worked really hard to send me to school, so there was never a lot of expendable cash just being thrown around. If you wanted something, it had to be for Christmas or your birthday.
Yeah.
Which I'm so grateful for. I know people have a lot less, but it was the first time in my life when I was about 20, 21 that I had money rolling in, and I kind of didn't really know what to do with it. And I went down probably about a 3-year path on and off. It wasn't consistent with gambling addiction. And it just kind of started out as this fun hobby, as it usually does with men in their late teens, early 20s. And then it kind of quickly really spiraled into a massive problem. And it really blindsided me and just like held me down. And for a good 3 years, it was just in and out of these gambling binges with sports betting. And yeah, it was really, looking back on it, I just can't believe that I got to the points that I got to at that time. But a lot to learn from it, and so grateful that I can talk about it now in almost a positive light, and try and spread awareness around it.
Who was your influence?
Influence to gamble?
Yeah.
I honestly don't think it was a person. It was a hobby that me and my mates were getting into. We would it started out just by putting $50 in, and this is sports betting, by the way. This isn't pokies or casino gambling. Usually people have a medium that they like. I couldn't really care about pokies. I couldn't care about casino games, but with sports betting, I think it appeals to young men because you think you got an edge. Like I love AFL, so I thought I had an edge there. I was like, no, I know the teams, I know the players, I know who's going to win. But yeah, it started off as just fun with friends, putting down $50 on a 2-to-1. If you win it, you take your original $50 out, and then you're playing with profit, and then you try double that again, and double that again, and double that again, and it was fun for a while because we were winning, right? So, you'd make a couple $100, and that was a really, really nice feeling. And I think leaning into the control perfectionism conversation we were having before, it was the first time in my life where I could really I felt like I had control over my finances, and I could make a bit of a buck, and it felt good going out and shouting my friends' drinks and that sort of thing. But as it goes with gambling addiction, there's a lot of people that can just lose a 50 or lose a 10 or lose a 20 and be like, all right, I'm done. That was fun. But I was the complete opposite. I had this sort of thing in my brain, almost like a compulsion gambling, as they call it, right? So if I'd lose the money, I'd go, I've got to get that back. Like I have to get that money back. So I would pour more money into the account. And 9 times out of 10, I'd bail myself out and I'd get the money back. But there's always that 1 time out of 10 that you don't, and that can get you into some real trouble. And heaps of denial in that phase of my life too. Like, it's not that bad. I've got money coming in. I'm getting paid next week. It's fine. Kind of not choosing not to look at how much you're losing. People always talk about how much they win, but never how much they lose. So, yeah, it was a real, it's an ugly kind of part of my life. Yeah, when I look back on it.
It's different to hear your perspective from the life of addiction. When people hear of addiction, they think drugs, alcohol. It's almost like gambling is like this third party aspect where a lot of people don't really pay much attention to it.
Yeah.
Myself, I've never been a gambler, but the drugs were always.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like when it's the same with me with alcoholism, right? Like I could never have a problem with alcohol. It just doesn't draw me in.
Or do you think you don't think you can?
Yeah, it just isn't. Everyone has a vice of some sort, right? Some people shop too much. Some people gamble too much. Some people drink too much. Some people do drugs. It's kind of just what draws you in. Everyone's got their thing, in my opinion anyway, and to different degrees as well. But yeah, like I look at alcoholism and I'm like, it just doesn't draw me the same as gambling did. But the issue with gambling is that it's an industry that's stacked against you from the get-go, right? And when you're young, you don't realize that. I looked at gambling as a tool to get rich, not an industry that is preying on me and trying to get every single dollar out of me. From the advertising, like all the ads, it's always at the footy with your mates, drinking beers. Like it just hones in on that early 20s lifestyle.
Demographic sort of
and
thing.
Demographic, yeah. So that's the thing with gambling. The thing that sucks about it is you don't actually often get a high from it. At least with drugs, you get a momentary high, maybe. But with gambling, a lot of the time, it's just lose. Little win, lose. And so it's just miserable. And, and you can take the gambling away and swap it with cocaine addiction, for example, right? You're still behaving the same. You're up at night, looking at your phone, placing bets on bloody European handball at 2:00 in the morning, like reclusive, not talking to anyone. It affects your mood. You can't focus when you're losing money like that. So you still behave the same. It's just like pick your poison. You know what I mean? And I think it took a long time to realize that, because it was just at the start, it's a little bit of fun. like I said before, I'm getting paid next week. I can make it up. I can get the money back. But then you reflect on it years later. I'm like, it was like you're behaving like a junkie. You know, you were up late at night betting on ridiculous sports that you don't even have an interest in. And that's a sad thing too. Like, it made sport really evil for me in a way, you know, and I love sport. I love watching it, and it's so nice that I can watch it now and not think about that when I'm watching it. But for a long time, it was just all about odds and all that crap that comes along with the gambling.
Wow. Yeah, fuck. That's funny you say that. Pick your poison sort of thing. And I can understand when you said you can never have you can never be drawn into alcohol. That's like me with gambling.
Yeah.
I understand you.
Yeah.
I have never been into it, and I never did. A few of my mates, buddy, they'll put all their money up.
Yeah.
Never, ever interests me.
And that's the thing too. That's with a group of friends. Say you got 10 friends that are all gambling. 8 or 9 of those friends are going to be fine. And if they lose $50, they'll walk away and they'll go, that's all good. But there's going to be, statistically, there's going to be 1 or 2 of those friends that have that attraction to compulsive gambling, and they're done. Like, it's a numbers game. And I think being able to recognize early, okay, I'm that sort of personality, or I'm that sort of person, you know? And gambling runs in my family. There's family history with gambling. So I would say that I'm genetically predisposed to that sort of dopamine hit of gambling, you know? Whereas some other people might be genetically predisposed to alcoholism or you know, drugs or whatever it is. So I think it's, if you can kind of catch it early and know what your poison is, it can really help you. Because it really blindsided me, because it just turned from something that was really fun and just a good time with mates to something that really was super destructive. And it even blindsided like my mum, for example, when I told her when I hit rock bottom. I still remember that call, and I was living in Melbourne at the time. I had lost thousands and thousands of dollars and just basically pissed away all the money that I made that year, which was a massive area of like self-loathing and resentment, that you've just pissed all this money away and you've worked so hard for it, and you're in a great opportunity to save money. And so I was in Melbourne and I had just sold my Nintendo Switch at Cash Converters to pay my rent. That's how bad it got. And I went into Cash Converters and I was looking around at the crowd that was in there, and I was just like, this is what my life has become. And I was like, you've got to reach out and tell someone, like, because up until that point, no one knew. And still to this day, maybe 20 people know about my past, and they know by me saying I had a problem. This is the first time I'm coming out and talking about this to anyone.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, thank you for listening. But like, apart from my mum, this is the first time that I'm kind of being open about this. So it was just this big, dark, shameful secret, and addiction turns you into a liar. And yeah, so to get on with the story, so I sold my Nintendo Switch to pay for my rent in Melbourne. I just said, I've got to tell someone. I need someone to help me with some accountability, or just to give me some direction, because if I keep going through this loop, it's just going to be the same thing time and time again. And so I remember calling my mum and looking back, I can't even believe that I made that call, because I think with the past, that with my sister passing away, I had this expectation of being the golden child, the glue that kept the family together. Oh, we don't have to worry about Jack. We're so grateful to have Jack. He's a great child. He coped with all that grieving so well. Look at what he's gone on to do. And it's this image that I'm about to completely tear down. And looking back, it was just me showing my vulnerability. I'm human, you know. We all have flaws, but I remember making the call to mum and just saying, look, I've got a problem with gambling. I've lost all my money and have just had to sell something to pay my rent. I need help. And I just remember hearing the heartbreak in her voice, because I think she thought that it had skipped me and that I was safe from that. And yeah, she was absolutely devastated. And so was I. Like I said, I can't believe I even made that call, because just looking at the phone, like her name right there, like as it was calling, I was like, I'm about to break my mum's heart. And she's my go-to person for anything emotional. So she was my first port of call. But once I made that call and I shared my issues and my problems, that's when it all started to get better, because at least I had somebody saying, look, you've fucked up, and you've got some work to do, and you need to go and see someone and take this seriously. But at least then it was out in the open. You know, shame, what's the Brené Brown quote? Shame can't live, if you put shame in a petri dish and you throw empathy on it from somebody else by sharing your story, it dies.
Mm.
Shame loves to be internal in your head, not spoken. But as soon as you get it out in the open and share with someone, it takes that little edge off it. And, you know, a problem shared is a problem halved. And I hope I got that Brené Brown quote right. I think it was a little bit off. But it goes along those lines, yeah. So once I kind of cracked that open, it really helped. And that's when I started to get professional help from psychologists. And yeah, that was rock bottom for me with that addiction.
Thank you for sharing, man.
Yeah, thank you.
We have lived the same life.
Yeah.
In that respect, from everything you said to the beginning to the end.
Yeah.
Dude, relatability, just different poisons.
Yeah, exactly. And the funny thing is, as I've opened up about this and told more people, often the first thing people say is, oh, I had an auntie that had that problem. Oh, my brother's really bad with that at the moment. It's like, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
But when you live in that shame, that internal shame cycle, you think it's just you. But as soon as you share it, you're like, wow, like it's in everyone's life. It's like mental health or suicide. Like when you talk about that, the amount of people that affects is astronomical. But sometimes you think you're the only one. So yeah. So as I've told this story a little bit more and shared it with people I'm really close with, a lot of them just come back and say, oh yeah, my mum, my dad is bad with that, or I've got a best friend that's having struggles with that. So it's kind of nice to share it and see that you aren't alone. Yeah.
Yeah, that baffles me, man. Fuck. You know, I know people who have gone through addiction, not as many as gambling.
Yeah.
It's just something you don't really hear about, you know, and I think, I guess we probably come from two different worlds in terms of what our poison was, so we're always going to be sort of connected to the people who are surrounded that industry. You know, with you probably have a lot of people who you know were ex-gambling addicts or were gambling addicts. I know a lot of people who are drug addicts, ex-drug addicts. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's interesting too. I wonder, looking back, did people know? Because you think you've got it covered, right? But I look back, because there were times when I would be messaging my mate saying, as I said, like shame turns you into a liar. I'd be messaging mate saying, you know, I've got to fix something with my car. Do you have $50 that you can send me, and I'll pay you back next week when I get paid? And I always did. I never stole, but it doesn't make it any better.
No.
Like I was still lying to get money to feed my fucking addiction. Like that's still like, that feels like a dagger going through my heart that I was asking mates for money, like, and lying to them. But that's what addiction does. It turns you into a desperate lying loser. And I want to be careful with that and just say that if people are going through addiction, you aren't a loser at your core. But it turns you into just this ugly person. And yeah, I look back on that and just really have a lot of guilt over putting myself in that position. But it's what shaped me today, and now I'm great with money, and I was able to go away and do contracts after that, after I went through that period, and prove to myself, oh, you can save money. You know, you can invest and do the things that you wanted to do before. It's not the end of the road if you're down this path. It feels like it a lot of the time, but you can always turn things around, and I did. Yeah.
Addiction will strip you to your core and strangle you until you suffocate in every aspect. You know, I've fucking said some pretty horrible lies to people to get some money to go and, you know, buy a bag.
Yeah.
I've probably, you know, I relate to your story when you said you sold your Nintendo Switch. I sold my motorbike helmet
Yeah.
so I can buy a bag of
Yeah.
Coke.
Yeah.
And that's
Insane, isn't it?
that's what it does to you,
Yeah.
man. And, you know, that's the first time I've ever told anyone that as
Yeah.
well.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, it's crazy what it can turn you into, and it can be so far from your core of who you are.
Yeah, dude.
And it's very easy to judge people. You know, you hear of, you know, someone being addicted to drugs or whatever the vice is, and they stole from their family, and that's horrible. But until you understand what it's like to be in that position where this addiction has a grip on you and it is not letting you go, then you understand how it gets to that level. I'm so grateful it never got to that level where I had to steal from my family or...
I've never stolen.
Yeah.
I never could bring myself to do it.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing.
Sorry.
Probably one thing I'm like, whilst I was in addiction, that's probably one thing I held myself accountable to do is to never steal from anyone.
Exactly. And yeah, it's just crazy the person it can turn you into. And then when you hopefully get clear of that, you look back and you go, what the fuck was I doing? Like that is so far from my sense of self. And it's really scary. Yeah.
How's your mental health going through the addiction?
Not great. I'll be honest, I had lots of suicidal thoughts when I was losing big amounts of money. And that's quite a common characteristic of gambling addiction in particular, because it's just complete hopelessness.
Yeah.
You know, I'm so grateful that it happened early in my life when I can kind of chalk it up to a little bit of youthful naivety, just a bit of stupidity as well, not to lessen the impact of the addiction, but I'm glad that I can leave it in my early 20s and go, yeah, that was really dumb. I've learned from that. And now I move forward rather than being 40 years old, having 2 or 3 mouths to feed, a partner, a mortgage, and you blow it on that. Because then you're losing kids, partner, shelter. You know, it was if there's any time to make that mistake, that was the best time to make it, which I'm really grateful for. So yeah, mental health wasn't great through that period. Lots of suicide ideation, to be completely honest, just because I just didn't know how I was going to get out of it. And it was like this road that I never kind of saw an out. It was always gamble, lose, recover, bail myself out, and then I wouldn't touch it for a few months. And then a trigger would happen again, and then gamble, lose, bail myself out. And it was just, you knew it was coming, those binges. And then when you don't get to bail yourself out and you lose it all, that is just complete like
kick in the chest.
Yeah, and you give up. You're like, I've got this addiction that I can't get a hold of, and I'm completely hopeless, and I don't have a cent to my fucking name. I can't even go out and buy groceries. There's no food in my cupboard because I've blown it all, you know? So yeah, it was really, really tough through that period. And the thing is though, but from the outside, it probably looked like I was doing just fine, you know? I was going away.
Preach it, brother.
Yeah, like I was going away and I was still going away and traveling, and, you know, working and experiencing all these great things, but there was just this veil of hidden dark shame with this addiction. So that might surprise a lot of people if they listen to this and they go, oh wow, like he was going through that at that time, and that's how concealable it is, you know?
Dude, that baffles me. You know, suicidal ideation in terms of addiction is so real, and not a lot of people, unless you've been through it, you don't really understand. I think when I was having my suicidal thoughts, it was always on the back end of a bender. Yeah. It was always on the back end of using. And I think when I've been doing a lot of reflection lately just on my life and where I want to go and everything. When I think about those moments, it's like I don't think I actually wanted to kill myself. I wanted to kill a part of myself. Yeah. I wanted to kill the addiction. You know, the only time I ever wanted to kill myself, or I was driving one time and I was in a bit of a foresty area. I like my hand were like triggering to just drive into the tree. That, like I was at that level, you know. But something in me didn't allow myself to physically do to do the motion.
Yeah.
And you know, that was on the back end of a bender. That was on the tail end of thinking, it's like I just want to kill a part of myself.
Yeah. Yeah, totally relatable. And you want the pain and suffering to end.
You do.
And you don't know how to get out of it.
You feel like it's never ending.
Yeah, and that's a characteristic of depression, right? Like all of this is sparked from depression, whether that's drug induced or financial depression or anxiety. But with depression, you just feel like the clouds are never going to part, and it's so easy when you're in a great mindset to think, oh, it's gonna pass. Like just do the right things, and it will get better. But when you're in that space, it is just never ending misery.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I can totally relate to that. Yeah, you're just wanting to just switch off this part of me that is
and you do anything, you're just like, fuck, how can I make this stop, or this, that, the other, and it ends up, you sort of, I think for the most part, I really bottled it up. When I had those thoughts and feelings and emotions, I didn't really tell anyone.
Yeah.
Because it's the shame of being an addict. You don't want to admit to anyone that you've just spent thousands on whatever poison it is. You know, like, fuck.
Yeah.
There was some pretty dark points, and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars
down the drain.
You know.
Yeah, and I think too, you don't want to burden people with your problems as well. And also, there's the part of shame. You don't want people to look down on you or judge you. And what I've found personally, and I know this is also what a lot of other people have found, and it's talked about quite a lot, is vulnerability equals connection. It actually makes you connect with people and form a relationship with people so much easier.
Huge.
When you take that veil down and you go, I'm human and this is the mistake I made. And it took a really long time to learn that. I think for so long I was just so hell-bent on keeping this golden image of everything's fine, I'm traveling, living my life, enjoying all these beautiful contracts and holidays and things like that. But when you just stop that for a second and just put that to the side and let yourself be vulnerable, that's when all the magic starts to happen for you, which is a really tough step because you've got to jump into that and you don't really know how you're going to be received as well. But it's like I said before with that positive feedback loop, once you do it and you receive the empathy from people, and I'm not saying that as you're wanting people to feel pity for you, but when you share your story and people go, oh, like, I know how that feels, or I had a brother with that problem, or I had a family member with that problem, and they say, oh, thank you for sharing that with me. I'm really, really sorry that you went through that. Then that feedback loop starts of like, oh, I just shared that and I didn't die. I didn't, get yelled at or judged. And sometimes it's got to be with the right person. You've got to screen who you tell, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can't just go out telling everybody. It takes time for you to build up that courage to share. And if you're with the right people, just start with it might be a family member or your best mate. Start there. And then you don't have to go straight from a best friend or family member to the next person. You can have a bit of time to sit in that and have that discussion. And you might not want to share with anyone at all outside your best friend, and that's completely okay as well. But I've just found that the more that I've allowed that to be a part of my journey, and talking about it has really opened me up and I think made me more human and has really like kind of set me on a trajectory in life that I'm really loving and has made me really happy. Yeah.
It's beautiful to hear, man. I think, allowing yourself to sit with the acknowledgement of being an addict, it's like, okay, I am.
Yeah.
I am this. Let's not sugarcoat it. Let's not beat around the bush.
Yeah.
Acceptance will set you free in every aspect. It doesn't matter what situation you're in, even if it's positive, negative, happy medium, whatever it is. I think the amount of nights I've spent sitting on my bed crying at the realization that I've just spent X amount of thousand on something what makes me feel that deep and hollow and disgusted and saddened and miserable, angry, frustrated, all of these vulgar, sort of emotions. the amount of nights I spent on the edge of their bed being like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But I still found myself going back to it. You know, you recover, you finish the come down, you get your serotonin back.
Yeah, it's a loop.
It is. It's a loop, and it's a fucking dangerous one.
Yeah, it is. And I think at the same time too, there's got to be a part of you that is ready to end it. It's kind of like I liken it to a relationship that's not working, right? It's kind of going through the motions, and there's a part of you that eventually goes, "No, this has got to stop," and you can't really get to that point until you get to that point naturally. It's got to be organic. And that was the point with me. Like, I was seeing a psych for a long time, but still going through those loops occasionally. But I remember the last time that I said, I'm done. And I really felt it. I was like, I am done with this shit. Like, and because you don't want to feel that way ever again.
No.
But I think I would love to say that I chalked it up to something beautiful that my psychologist said to me, and it, like, the penny
Just
dropped,
bang.
and I walked out of that office and never did it again. But it was just this moment of, you don't have to live like this anymore. And it just organically, I was just like, I'm through with this. I'm sick of this misery. I'm sick of feeling like this. And I've never looked back, and I haven't gambled now for, what would it be, 5 years. And I still get triggers.
What are they?
Parking fines. So if I get a parking fine, my brain goes, I could put $100 on a 2-to-1 and I could pay that off.
Really?
Which is so stupid, right? But that's what my brain does, like, with complete honesty. And so there's triggers there, but it doesn't go any further than that, because I know where that road leads. And also just from the learning experience, like, I know it's stacked against me. So I'm like, you're going to lose, you know? And I think that's okay, because triggers won't stop. There will always be triggers. You can try and repress it as much as you like, but there's always going to be something that brings you back to that addiction that you were suffering with. So I think it's being able to be aware of the triggers, and mindfulness is really helpful in this too. Like, being like, okay, I see you, the trigger, I see it, I feel it, and that's all it needs to be. Instead of going, oh, don't think about it. That's the complete wrong way to go about it, because it's like, don't think of a pink elephant, you think of a pink elephant, you know?
Yeah.
So just being aware of the triggers, and that's all it needs to be. And I'm kind of grateful now every time I get a trigger, because it's a reminder that, oh yeah, you overcame that massive thing.
Fuck yeah.
And it's empowering. It's like now you can look at that and just be like, oh, okay, cool, I see you. That's as far as it's going to go, you know? So it's been a massive learning experience, this whole thing, which I'm really now am so grateful to say that I'm, like, really kind of proud of, that I came out the other side.
It's a funny thing with addiction, man. Right now in this current, I'm totally clean. Of course the trigger is, like, for me, alcohol is the trigger.
Yeah. Alcohol's like a gateway, right?
Dude.
Yeah.
I can't, so past few months I've had a few little slip-ups, totally honest.
Yeah.
But most recently I had a really, really deep conversation with a really close friend of mine.
Yeah.
You know, he just sort of reinforced everything for me. I've got a few things coming up, which I think a part of me doesn't align with that lifestyle anymore.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm also totally sober as well. Totally, like, the days are counting up, and I'm fucking loving it.
Yeah.
And I've noticed, once I finally made the decision, like, nah, this is it. I've said I was going to quit everything for years. Yeah. Years. But it never happened. It was that loop, bang, bang. But until something happens, until you come to the realization organically, with a bit of influence from other people.
And it's the help from seeing someone professional, or
100%.
But it's changing your thinking about it. But yeah.
Dude, absolutely. And, you know, I have a lot of love for some of my closest friends. Like, when I was saying I was going to quit, next weekend I'm back on it. Same loop every single fucking weekend, or whatever it was, every day. There was a point there. They've all stuck by me.
Yeah.
And, like, okay, a little bit of judgment, but I think I needed that judgment
Yeah.
to sort of kick me up the arse a bit more.
And you're scared to take that step to tell them because you don't want that accountability of them going, oi, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
Pull your fucking head in.
Yeah.
And I can relate to that with this conversation now. Like, there's some of my mates that I will still, on a night out, they'll want to go to the pokies. And I'll put money in the pokies, no worries. And that doesn't draw me in like sports betting does.
Yeah.
But it doesn't align with what I'm about now. So it's kind of like it's okay because I can put a fiver in and leave it at that, or go to the casino and just play a bit of blackjack or something. It doesn't draw me in like sports betting does. I don't have a problem with it, but it doesn't align with what I'm doing.
With
so
you,
now
yeah.
with this conversation, if they hear this, I would hope that if we go to the pokies, they can go, oh, probably, are you sure you want to go in there? And that's a scary step to take because you don't want that freedom taken away from you, to be spontaneous and just go with the flow. But at the same time, like, whether it's going and doing sports betting or if it's going and doing pokies, it's still in the same vein. Like, I really would hope that they would check in on me and just go, and even if I say, no, it's all good. I've got this under control. Like, it doesn't draw me in like sports betting does. That's fine as well. But yeah, it's really powerful telling people because then they can kind of keep you in check.
Yeah.
And then you've got that subconscious feeling of, they know.
Yeah.
Like, they know about my issues.
Yep.
And it can kind of help influence the behaviours that you have with your friends as well.
It's funny you say that. I think like me being open and honest about my past struggles, probably one of the biggest reasons why I am sober and clean now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have done a lot of internal work and, now I have to be a man of integrity, leading this space and, with the plans I have in the future. For anyone to even hear me and be like, wow, he's actually, making an impact or whatever it is, it's like I have to follow it up.
Yeah.
It's like I can't be recording podcast or putting out advocating post or, writing up a script about mental health or taking videos acknowledging our past struggles to be better. I can't do all of that if I'm still snorting coke.
Yeah. Yeah.
It would just be an absolute fucking fuckery of just my personal, persona and like, and I put myself in people's shoes too. It's like, if I was to notice a podcast host or anyone in the space at all, and then if I see them at the PAV on a Saturday night, fucking, sending bloody pints down the back of your throat and come and go to the bathroom every 10 minutes, I'm looking to be like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing for me was I was listening to Mel Robbins' podcast, and she had this mindfulness practice. She said, once you're laying down in bed at night, close your eyes, reflect on you, look at yourself from an outsider's perspective, and if you roll your own eyes at you by the things you're doing, then you're doing something wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I did that. I was like, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like penny drop moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's also okay to also remember, like, no one's perfect, and if the version you are now isn't aligning, that's okay. You can make little changes to steer you in the right direction. I think everybody wants to be perfect, picture perfect, and and completely align with who they want to be in the future. But you're not there yet. But you're on a road to get there. So, if you're noticing things about your behavior that aren't aligning with who you want to be, you can just slowly steer yourself in that direction. You don't have to do it all at once. So give yourself a little bit of like grace as well, you know. And obviously, it's not healthy what you're talking about, getting on the bag and then coming in and doing a podcast. That just would be an absolute nightmare. But give yourself a little bit of grace too, that it's little small changes that lead you to that new direction. 100%. It doesn't have to be a total shift all at once. Oh, okay, I'm going off alcohol and I'm going plant-based and blah blah blah. It doesn't have to be
a little bit too fast, too drastic.
Exactly, and that won't stick.
No.
But just little tiny changes, like me and you both, we love exercise. That's been a massive part of my lifestyle and getting better and improving my life slowly, like just one thing at a time,
Dude, fitness has been a massive stepping stone in my sobriety and, being, in being clean.
Yeah.
Like, you know, invitation comes through on a Friday night. Hey, do you want to go for a beer at, you know, XYZ, rah? Nah, man, got to run in the morning.
Yeah, I know.
I think it holds so much accountability, and for anyone who knows the triggers are that message, cut it off.
Yeah.
Cut it off right at the send or the delivered. You know, have something in check and plan.
Yeah, and it just gives you so much structure as well. I think that's the biggest thing it's given me up until about COVID, which was around about the same time that the gambling stopped, right before COVID, I think, or maybe a couple months before, end of 2019 maybe. But up until that point, I was kind of living this like purposeless life. Like I was just kind of just in that grey zone of just, you know, not really setting an alarm, waking up when I woke up, going to work, maybe going out, you know. And then when COVID happened, it kind of gave me a kick up the bum, and that's when my fitness stuff really took off. And it's given me so much structure in my life. Like now I get up every day and it's a non-negotiable, and it's not even hard anymore. It was hard at the start. You know, you got to get up and make sure you train so you're ready for this race in 3 months. You should be doing this. It's good for your mental health. It's good for your physical health. But now I swear my hands just tie up my shoelaces for me. And my legs just walk me out the door, and then I'm on a run. And that run might be a couple of hours, but it's like I'm on autopilot. And it's just a part of my life now that I love, and it's given me so much structure. And what you're saying, you know, about going out on a Friday, Saturday night, like it's nice to be able to be like, oh, actually, no, I've got another priority. And some people don't understand that, and that's okay. But I think if they understood the reasoning behind why you do that, it's not just to flake off on your mates and go on a run the next morning. There's reasons why that's important to you, and it provides you structure. And so that's what fitness is to me now. It's just a lifestyle and a big part of my like life. It's like scaffolds my life basically.
There's this practice what I use. Sometimes I forget to use it, but I guess I'm only human. There's this practice I use, and basically it goes, the person who spends less energy on doing the thing will do the thing even though you're spending more energy on it yourself. That may have sounded absolutely bonkers, but like, say you got two people, one person has a structure to go to the gym and so do you in the afternoon. That person who just goes to work and does their thing and goes to the gym straight away without any hesitation is spending a lot less energy on the actual thing, providing with more energy to do productive things throughout your day, rather than if you're getting up at 6, like, oh fuck, I have to go to the gym this afternoon, like, and then you're sort of thinking, how can I get out of this? Like, what? Like, you're just spending so much emotional energy on the thing. What, another person just doing it by default. And I think that comes with time, right?
It does, yeah. Like, that's a building of a habit for sure.
It is, absolutely. It's like,
it doesn't come at the start.
When I can guarantee for even state you're going to be like, 100% I agree. When I started running, it was a fucking mission to get out the door, dude. I was like, oh, I don't want to run. I hate this shit. Oh my God. But now shoes come on automatically and it's like, oh, I'm going for a run. And you just start running. You don't think about how can this end.
I would run at 10 p.m. sometimes because I had procrastinated all day and I was like, I've got to fucking do it now. And I'd be running at night and it was horrible, you know?
Brutal.
Like, but then you build that habit and you reap all the benefits from it physically and mentally. And now I'm like, fuck yeah, I get to run this morning, or I get to ride, or I get to go for a swim, especially if it's with friends and community as well. That just adds a bonus. But yeah, I think it does take time to build that discipline, I would say, as well. And it becomes a non-negotiable, which is really weird to think now because I hated running as a school kid. Like, couldn't think of anything worse.
Yeah, literally. And it's sort of funny, like, I think changing your mindset just as a whole, your whole perspective on the new things you're doing, it's like change from I have to I get to. It's like you just said before, you said it perfectly. That's why it sparked up in my head. You said, I get to go for a run. I get to go for a ride. I get to go for a swim. I get to hang out with people. It's like, I have to go to see this person, XYZ, you know? And I think once you flip that perspective, it's so much more healthier.
Yeah, and I think surprising yourself with things as you grow through life, like fitness and running, like I really surprised myself with that. As it started as just I need to do this to get fitter because I wasn't happy with my fitness and overall general health, and surprising yourself and going, oh, if I train, I'll get faster or I'll get fitter. If I put effort into this, it will equal something. And that can transfer across any area of life. That could be your finances. That could be fitness goals. That could be intellectual goals. Like me going to uni and studying physio now, like I always saw physio as like a smart person's degree, you know, all the smart people went and did that out of school, you know, and yes, it requires a little bit of hard work and intellect, but I never considered myself a smart person. And then I got down the track and I was like, if I put effort into this, I can do it. And that's exactly what I did. And I think it's like, that's kind of like my why, I would say, like continually surprise yourself with your endeavors in life. Like I'm so excited to see what is the next thing that I, you know, strive for. I don't know what it is, but you know, just constantly surprising yourself and putting in the work. Because if you put in the work and you care about something enough and you want something enough and you set yourself the goals and little steps along the way, you can achieve it.
I think, like, hopefully I say this right. There's Chris Williamson says a lot. He goes, contemplate the price you pay for inaction. And I think that can transfer to people who have all these goals and ambitions and dreams, but they don't go through with it because of the fear. And then we hear all the time, older generation be like, oh, I wish I did this, wish I did that.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the price you paid for inaction. By you showing up for yourself today and making action, by you putting in the hard work and gaining a little bit more intellect into some of the things what you want to, physio, more fitness, better times, rah-rahs, like, the price you pay for action is nothing. Like it's more rewarding.
Yeah,
you know?
of course. And life's short. Like you've got to just go out there and get after what you want. Like you either learn that very early, like me, or you learn that a little bit later. But I'm kind of glad I learned that early, the finite nature of life, because it was like life's short. It can change at any moment. Go out and do it. Like stop talking about it. And I was that person that was talking about. I was yap about what I wanted to do, and you know, but I never did it. And it's so easy to get caught into that mindset and that way of life of I'll do it tomorrow or I'll do it next week, because that was me to a T. But you just got to put those little steps in place, and you go from there.
What would your tomorrow you want your today to? What would your tomorrow you want your today you to do?
Have more conversations like this, especially with my parents as well, like really coming back to that tough period around 2011, just to crack that open a little bit, because I think we could get so much, I don't want to say closure, but a lot of clarity out of that time period. But yeah, I definitely think more vulnerability, more openness, having those conversations. I feel like I'm just starting to crack into that way of being, and I'm kind of like, damn, I wish I'd discovered this years ago, but you kind of just end up organically where you end up, right? And that's your journey. So, just definitely having more chats like this, I think.
I think going back to the conversation we we're having on the addiction and stuff, it's like what I said at the start, sorry, you are the person who you are meant to be in this moment. Like when we were in that phase of addiction, we were meant to be that person in that time. I think, you know, as life goes on and as we continue to grow and grow and develop and all these things, we notice the rose petals while we pluck off, and they always transpire down the line. The thing you're doing today will help you in 3 months if you're, you know, starting a training block. You might not be where you want to be in that moment, but that's where you're meant to be in that moment, you know.
And I think it's also remembering that you only had the tools at that time to deal with whatever you were dealing with. Giving yourself a little bit of grace. It's so easy to you know, pour shit on yourself and be feel heaps of resentment and guilt and shame for whatever might have happened. But I often come back to thinking you were only doing the best with what you had at the time.
100%.
You know, and it was a shit time, but now you take the little gold nuggets out of that, and I can use that again on a different situation with more growth. So yeah, remembering to give yourself a little bit of grace, and it's everyone's first go at this thing called life, and there's a lot of speed bumps and traps and tricks along the way, and just like navigating that as best you can. And I think the best way to do that is just with communication and opening up and sharing your troubles. Like, everyone's got something. Every single person has something. The people that you look at that have all their shit together, that look like they have that golden life, like The Imperfects, a great podcast, because they bring people on that you would look at and go, you've got your shit together, you've got it sorted, the perfect life. But then they have those conversations and you're like, oh my God, they were going through that or that or that or that. So yeah, we're all human and we're all going to make mistakes along the way.
What's one struggle you have right now where you aren't talking about?
Oh, one struggle that I'm not talking about. I think maybe going back to uni and being a little bit older now, mature age student, that took a lot of getting used to. And maybe not being on the conventional path that a 27-year-old might usually be on. Like, a lot of my mates right now are like killing it in their respective careers, are settling down with partners. Like, I'm single at the moment, at uni. So it's just a little bit different.
Not after this, brother.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just, I'm on a little bit of a different path, and that's completely okay. But that's just, I keep having to remind myself that, because it can be so difficult with societal pressures and seeing what's around you in your close circles and being like, oh, I need to have that. Like, I should be there. But then I come back to it, but you're so happy right now and you're studying what you love and you're talking about amazing topics like we are right now, and you feel good, you feel fit, like your head is fit.
Such an underrated aspect.
Yeah, and I've come to the realization now as well, quite recently, that I actually couldn't care about if I, have a house or have that car or, all those things that we want and we want and we want. As long as I'm in the state that I'm in now, right now in life, where I'm happy, I've got great friends and family around me, I have a purpose, and that will turn into career once I graduate physio, obviously, and that's something that I really want to do. Like, as long as I'm in this kind of headspace, I'm happy, and that's such a great position to be in, because how long ago was 2019? 5 years ago, sorry. 5 years ago, when I was going through at the tail end of my gambling addiction, that was not where I was. I was fucking miles away. And, I had a bit of a spell at the start of this year of depression, and that rocked me around a bit, and I was miles away then. And just to finally be at this stage where I'm like, I'm just really content in just being, and just being here myself and just enjoying life.
Do you think when you said to me, your biggest struggle is not being like on the conventional path, do you think that's a byproduct of you comparing yourself to everyone else at university, in a sense, you know?
Yeah, it's more so close friend circles that are around my age, because most people at uni that I'm at uni with are like 19, 20, 21, 22. So like that's kind of what you do at that age if you do decide to go to university.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, so that's just they're just, going through that phase. And there's nothing wrong with whatever phase you're on if you decide to go to uni later, like all the power to you. But I think it's more so like I'm very close with my group of mates that I went to school with, and they're all similar age to me, around 27, and just seeing them, but it's actually not an expectation that anyone puts on you. You put it on yourself.
Put it on yourself, yeah.
No one's telling me like, oh mate, you should be working full time.
It's like, Jack, you are on the wrong path. What are you doing at 27 being in university, Yeah, no one's saying that.
My psychologist says expectations are the mother of all fuck ups. And I love that quote, because a lot of the time those expectations, no one's actually even told you like that you need to be doing this. Like all that perfectionism stuff when I was younger, my mum and dad weren't going, you need to get straight A's at school, you need to be winning arts awards, you need to get into an art school, and you need to succeed and be the top of this and this and this and this. They never once said that to me. They were the most relaxed, do what you want to do parents in the world. But it was all the expectation that I was putting on myself. And I think you've got to remember that. And that's happening now, that I'm going, oh, I should be here. I should, observing other people and just being like, no, you're just putting this on yourself. No one's asking you to be a full-time worker or
Mm-hmm.
or be in a relationship and have a partner. Like, people are happy, just you do you. Yeah.
There's something when you said to me about expectations, a thing I love, unspoken expectations are premeditated resentments.
Yep.
I think that can transpire internally as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you have this expectation on you, by you, let's say, comparing yourself to people around your age, and, you know, who are, you know, killing it in their careers and whatnot, and you're still, you feel like you're on the back foot a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you think you sort of internally resent a part of you for being on a different sort of path to what you're relatively close to?
Honestly, I don't think so. I know in my gut that this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and this is my...
That's beautiful, hey?
Yeah, this is my road. So I think it's just grappling with the other background noise.
Mm-hmm.
But at the heart of it, no. I think I'm very comfortable in, like, the decision I've made to go and do something different. You know, I was like, I've done the performing for a while. I've got other passions. I love fitness. I'm so interested in the body and rehabilitation and working with athletes, or, you know, that sort of thing. So yeah, I think if you always follow your passion, and that the passion may change, but I think if you're always kind of following that, you can't go wrong.
I think, you know, when you're in the space of comparing yourself, I think we lose sight of what we've done previously.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, your friends, yeah, they've got a bachelor, master, whatever it is, they got a house, they have their car, settling down. That might be in their journey, but they haven't seen the world in a way that you have.
Yeah.
They haven't had the experience you've had. You haven't, you know, you have lived a more eventful, you know, adventurous, exciting, you know.
Yeah, and that comes with sacrifices.
Dude,
right?
yeah.
So which one do you want?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want
Exactly.
the house, and it's not to say that one's better than the other too.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, it's whatever is important to you. But yeah, it's you make sacrifices either way.
You do it. Like, even in my world, a lot of my mates that are all, you know, qualified in their trade, or they, you know, starting to buy houses, they're starting to have kids. It's like, fuck, I don't have any of that shit, and I couldn't care less.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, I've lived this life.
Yeah.
I have more experience than you in some aspects.
Yeah.
Which I think has made me the person who I am now. And, like, you know, we all have a past. I would not be who I am right now if I didn't have those experiences.
Yeah.
And I think that's something I'm really grateful for. And I know you can relate to that as well. So, like, and even when I find myself comparing myself to the people who have the house, the car, the whatever it is, like you do, I think there's this internal, like, switch of, like, Lockie, but you've done this and that. And it's like, you know, be grateful for where you have been, because, you know, you aren't where you are, but fuck, you're so far from where you have been.
Yeah, and it's so easy to lose sight of it, isn't it?
Dude, 100%.
Like, just look through your camera roll, man. Like, that's what I try to remind myself. I'm like, just look through your camera roll at all the beautiful places you've been and the people you've met and the things you've done. It's so easy to lose sight of that in the moment, because you're just shrouded by all that other crap and expectation and want.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've just got to try to remind yourself sometimes, 'cause it's so easy to lose sight of.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Coming from our running conversation, fitness, mate, you do some incredible things around the charity runs. I noticed a few years ago, or a little while ago, you did a charity run for a little sick baby. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so that was when I was away on the cruise ships. So little boy by the name of Finn, a good friend of mine is his mother, and he was diagnosed with a rare condition, just like kind of Chloe was, and that really grabbed my attention, as well as just knowing Ebony, his mother. And I was away, and, you know, the monotony of doing shows can, you know, kind of get you bunkered down, and I was like, I just want to do something outside of the show, because being a performer can be quite a selfish vocation, because you're just worrying about yourself. So I was like, I need to do something external, and to give me a bit of direction. And then I saw that this had happened, and I was like, yeah, I really want to help in any way I can. And I was kind of brainstorming, like, how do we raise money for Finn, because the family was constantly in and out of hospital while he was sick, and the cruise ship had a running track around it, 600 meters. And I was like, I could do like a run on the ship. And so I kind of got brainstorming with the help of a few friends on the ship as well. I was like, how can I do something to raise money for the family? And they were like, why don't you do like a certain distance around the ship? So yeah, so I did, it was called 50 for Finn, and ran 50K around that little track. I think it was 75 laps or something. Very monotonous run, just around the same lap for a while. But the reception was like incredible. Like it blew my mind. I originally set out to just, raise a couple grand just to help with them with like hospital parking and that sort of thing. And like everyone just got behind it and like lifted it up, and we ended up raising like $16,000 or something. Like it just blew up. Yeah, it was crazy. I still look back on that and I'm like, I can't believe that we raised so much money for the family. And unfortunately, Finn passed away. How long would it have been after that? I think it might have been, don't want to get this wrong, but it might have been a few months after that that run, which was really devastating. But I'm just so glad that we were able to help the family out and support them during a really rough time. And in a way also, Finn was in a children's hospital. Chloe was in a children's hospital when she was sick. So it was very, it meant a lot to me to be helping out a family that, even though I'm not in that exact situation.
You sort of had a bit of understanding.
Yeah, I know what it's like to be in those bloody hospital wards, and you're in offices talking to doctors and you're in shock, and you're not even, it's going in one ear and out the other. And so I just wanted to, do what I could to provide for them and try help them out in that really dark period. Yeah,
that's fucking... I think like having those charity runs, they bring forth the conversation.
Yeah.
And the awareness for everything. It's absolutely beautiful, and it's great to see so many people doing all these incredible things. And I think, the awareness and charity, it's awesome.
And it's people power as well.
Yeah.
And people get behind it, and it's amazing. And that was all driven by the power of social media too.
Awesome.
That event got spread so far and was able to raise so much money through social media. So I'm just so grateful for that. And it just goes to show, even though people shit on social media a lot, there's a lot of
so much positive,
positive outcomes from that.
Now you're 2 weeks, well, not sure when this will be out, 15th of September.
Yeah.
You are doing 80 from 80. Talk to me about that. What's the motive behind it? What's the purpose? What started it? What drove it? Tell me everything.
I love my event names with a bit of a ring to it, don't I?
Fucking love it, man.
50 for Finn, 80 from 80.
Yeah, 80 from 80. Unreal.
It's a performer in me, I think.
It is. Just channeling it every day, hey?
So at the start of the year, I went through a pretty bad period of depression, kind of what we were talking about with that like displacement depression, like when you come back to home after a long time away. And it was the first time in my 20s that depression really like just slapped me on the face.
Before we go into 80 from 80, let's touch on that.
Yeah, sure, yeah. So I came back to Australia after 2 years away, and I had this fantasy of what my life was going to look like when I got back. And when you're working on cruise ships, especially, they're long contracts and you're around the same people all the time and you're doing the same thing every single day. So you really start to fantasize about going home, and you're going home with a lot of savings behind you because you've been working, not paying many expenses. So it's like this like big dream of like, oh, it's 30 days till I go home, 15 days till I go home, and you count it down. And so, I had this image of what it was going to be like, and I got back and I was like, it is nothing like I expected it to be.
Yeah.
Which leads into that expectation conversation we were having before. Like, I had a lot of expectation as to what it would be, and it really wasn't. And that sent me into a really, really hectic spiral of depression. I felt really sorry.
Do you think that stemmed from disappointment?
Yeah, the disappointment, but also I just think I was really resistant to change. And because you come back to the same place and all the buildings are the same, apart from the bloody roadworks, that hasn't... Oh, no. It's still going. But yeah, like everything's the same for the most part, but like your social circles are different. People have moved away, people are in relationships, blah, blah, blah. So it just really rocked me. And there's still a lot of it that I don't really understand. I think it was just I was just meant to just have that period of looking back growth now, even though it was really terrible. Like a lot of growth came from that. Yeah. And it was from probably November until I would say June. So it's pretty recent that I kind of got out of that
Oh, wow, man.
rough period.
Congrats, dude. You're fucking doing awesome, man.
Oh, it's amazing to be on the other side now.
Yeah.
And it's the power of retrospect too, like picking out the pieces that, you know, that you learnt and being like, oh, if you did that, like you could have maybe gotten out of it a little bit earlier, but it's you do the best with what you have at the time, right?
Fucking bang on.
Yeah, and so in that period, I really learnt to reach out to mates because I think what happens is there's the "Are you okay?" days and that sort of thing, but sometimes if you're going through it, you have to be the one to reach out, and that can be really scary because when you're in that mindset, you kind of love being in that woe is me, you know, the world's out to get me, and you don't want to reach out and say to someone, hey, I'm having a really rough time at the moment. Can you check on me over the next 2 months, every now and again?
It takes power as well.
Yeah, and all it takes is that one conversation, right? Like, and I'm raising money for living, and their motto is it ain't weak to speak. And that, as soon as I saw that, I was like, that's the organisation I've got to raise money for because that speaks to what I learnt so much in that period. But from November to March, I didn't reach out, and it was really bad. And now I look back and I'm like, you should have just like gone and told someone. I wasn't even seeing a psych, and I'm a massive advocate for psychologists. Like, I think they're great if you can find one that works for you. And I didn't go and see one for the first 3 months I was home, which is so silly to me now. Like, I should have been seeing one as soon as I got back, but it took that long to go, okay, no, you really need to be reaching out. So the whole premise of the fundraiser, 80 for a matey, is celebrating the mates we have in our life that you turn to. And there were different mates for different things while I was going through that period of depression. There was the mate that could, like my mate Shay, just makes me piss myself laughing. So I'd go to him for that. My mate Mitchell, who I go to for a deep conversation and vulnerable conversation because I know that he will hold the space for me. You know, parents, whoever it is to you, there's the friends that you go to that pull your head in and that give you the reality check. Like, we all have somebody like that in our circle. And if you don't, you can make connections and grow those people as well. That's what I also want this day to be about. The whole premise is come down for a run at 6 a.m. on Sunday, the 15th of September. Meet some new people or bring your friends along, but just spark that connection. It doesn't mean you have to have it deep and meaningful on a 4-kilometer run. I'm not asking you to divulge your deepest, darkest
I'll bring
secrets.
the mic, saying.
But just, you know, get out there and connect with people. And on the day, I'm hoping at certain milestones just to get the camera onto someone and just say, who's a mate you want to shout out for helping you through something tough recently? Just something as simple as that. It's giving your mate a shout out or just saying to them, like sending them a message. Like, there's been lots of people now that I'm messaging that helped me from November to March or November to even June that I really leaned on. And just sending that message and being like, hey, it's been a while since we've spoken, but I just want to let you know, like, thank you so much for giving me that advice or just listening to me ramble for a little bit. Like that, the power of saying thank you, that creates connection, you know? So that's what the day is all about. I just want it to be about sparking connection, getting down there, getting active, obviously, and just, coming along for a 4K loop, or if you want to join me for more, it's going to be a long day, so I'll need the company.
It will, man. I think there's something so real and pure about connection. Go down to Burley Heads at a Sunday morning and run. Yeah. You know, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a smile, you know, and that's just like that few second or that eye glance or whatever it is, it can really lift you up. And man, I just want to commemorate you for taking that step.
Thanks,
It's creating awareness for mental health, even putting your body on the line. 80Ks, it's a long way, you know, and I think just like to have the heart in you to be like, okay, I'm going to put myself on the line so we can create a conversation. I think it's really, really beautiful, actually, and I think we need more of you.
Thanks, mate.
In everyone's lives, you know, and charity runs, raising money. It's such a, it's perfect, really. Yeah. Like there's no ill anything about it. You know, it's just it's from the heart, and I really just want to say thank you for, you know, holding the space for not even yourself, but, you know, for other people. I
Yeah.
think, you know, it's just going through mental health. It's something what, you know, we all have our own struggles. We all do. You know, you just opened up about your own today. We haven't really spoken about. So, like that, and that's everyday people.
Yeah.
And you're very open about it. Some people aren't.
Yeah, and I think it's wanting to give back to what I've kind of learnt over the period as well, because I kind of wish there was somebody in November when I started to go through that dark period that I could have turned to, or that was like kind of like a giving a message of hope. And I feel like I want to be that to somebody else if I can help them, because I just felt very lost.
Yeah.
And I think there needs to be more of that, and especially in the men's mental health space. You know, there's podcasts everywhere for females, and that's awesome. And it's obviously building for males. And resources doesn't have to be podcasting; it could be figures or whatever it is. But yeah, I just really want to try and give back to the community with my knowledge, but also give back to myself in November. Like I've thought about finishing this 80K, which I hope I will, and like on the final lap, just reflecting back on, you know, 6 months ago, you were sobbing in your car 3 times a week, like, and were completely hopeless, and, you know, was driving through California like your car story. I was on the Big Sur, the most beautiful Californian highway you could ever imagine. Beautiful blue day, like stunning, and I just wanted to drive off the edge, and I'm so glad I didn't. And there was something stopping me, like what you said, you know, that little fragment of hope, or something stopped me. But thinking back to that, and now looking where I am now, and just I really hope that I take the time on that last lap to like reflect and just be like, this is kind of, you know, it's for everyone, but also take a bit of time for yourself, and this is for you. For 6 months ago, Jack, that didn't think that he'd be getting out of that, and now are in just a completely different headspace, which I'm so grateful for.
Dude, you're glowing.
Yeah.
You're fucking glowing in every area, man. Yeah, that's phenomenal, man. Keep up the great work.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah. To sort of tie in the episode, I have 3 questions I ask all my guests. What's the worst bit of advice you've ever received?
Worst bit of advice. I think time heals all wounds. And I understand the message behind that advice, but I think from my perspective anyway, we get better at accepting the reality of what's happened, and we learn to live alongside that wound or alongside that hurt. Because time heals all wounds kind of just sounds like, oh, you'll get to 5 years and it'll just poof, it'll be gone, you know? And obviously people say that it gets easier, but I just think you cope with it better and you let it sit in you a little better. Yeah, I just don't think, like, just reflecting back to like my sister passing, like that will never ever heal. It never really actually gets easier, but the way you let it sit in you, and the acceptance of what's happened and what else has become from that situation does make it easier to cope with. So yeah.
Grief is like a rock in your pocket. I'm not sure if you've heard it, but at the very beginning of grief, when you're going through all these stages of healing, it's like you have this huge rock in your pocket, and every time you walk, you stand, you sit down, it sort of pokes you and jabs you and makes you bleed, and you know, it sort of keeps going in your pocket. But over time, as your body starts to adapt to the rock being there, it sort of heals itself. It's sort of, the rock never leaves.
No,
but
never.
you just learn how to live with it a little bit more, you know. And I think that's something what is really impactful to hear that metaphor. It's something what I tell a lot of people, and you know, it's just sort of just gives you that hope, and it ties into time will heal all wounds. Yeah, the rock will never leave your pocket; it will still always be there. So yeah. If you and it goes to show, because even nowadays, if I talk to my mum, for example, about that time period, if we really crack into it and open up completely, we will still feel and behave the same as if it was 6 months after.
You know, like we'll still feel that feeling of wanting to cry, and that hurt comes out. So I think it's good to just remind yourself that it's always going to be there, because it means that that you're in a position where you cared and you're able to love something so much, and it gives weight to that love and that grieving. Yeah.
It's beautiful, man. I love it. What's the best bit of advice you've ever received?
I can't remember who gave me this advice, but you hear it a lot, but it's so good. It's just, if you do everything out of love and abundance in your life, rather than a place of lack and loss and scarcity, you can never go wrong. And that transfers to anything. If you do everything out of love and service and abundance, it'll change your life in ways that you just didn't even think it could. Yeah. Because I think, especially in the dark days, you can get really bunkered down in, I'm never going to feel better. You know, everything sucks. There's not enough of this. I don't have enough of that. But if you can just try and it's so much easier said than done, and I understand that. But if you can try and shift your mindset through things like mindfulness, and gratitude is a big one, because gratitude gives birth to all of that, you know, abundance and love, and finding, you know, you might be having the shittest day ever, but if you can just point out a couple things that you're lucky to have or you're grateful for, it just, even in like a little tiny way, it just changes your mindset around your mental health, I find. And the more you do it, the better you get at it too. It's like a muscle. You got to practice that gratitude and practice that place of love and place of abundance.
If you forget the language of gratitude, you'll never be on speaking terms with happiness.
You're full of quotes, aren't you?
Dude, I love it.
How do you remember them all? They're all great too.
Dude, you should see my phone.
The
I've got a whole
bison and the
notes.
cow,
Yeah, dude. I'll show you after this. I have my notes section.
Yeah.
I've got at least 150, 200. Every time I hear one, bang, boom.
I love it.
Dude.
Like an encyclopedia of...
It's, I love it. And I think I just try and grab a hold of everything I can, you know, hold on to, learning. I love it. Yeah, the quotes, man, they've changed my life.
Yeah.
You know,
just things you can hold on to.
Yeah.
You know, just like, and that quote I just told you then, like, it's always just be like, okay, I'm like love, abundance, not loss and lack. Like 4 words.
Yeah.
Just quickly say to yourself whenever something shitty's happened, you get
it transpires a whole broad spectrum.
Like a little speed bump in your day, you just go love and abundance. Smile at someone today, pay for someone's coffee, you know, help
Pay
someone
it
out.
forward, man.
Yeah, help someone out, pick something up off the ground or whatever it is, the tiniest little thing, and that can change the trajectory of your day.
100%, brother.
Yeah.
What is one thing you would say to someone who's struggling or going through a bit of a tough time at this current moment?
You know, I'd give him 2 books. No, I'd give him 3 books to read. One is Letting Go by David Hawkins. Second is The Universe Has Your Back by Gabby Bernstein. And the fourth is The Mountain Is You by Brianna West. I'd just grab those books and go, here you go, read these.
Yeah.
Rather than a quote, because they're 3 books that I read through this recent period of depression that I was in, and really, really helped me. And I know I'm going to read them every so often going forward as well, just to rehash, because they're full of gold.
Awesome, brother. Man, thank you. Thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to come and hold some space with us today.
Thanks for having me, mate.
I really do appreciate your time. Now, 80 from 80, I will be there. I'll be coming up for a week on Hamo, so I'll be in Fairyland a little bit.
Yeah.
But mate, I absolutely love what you're doing. You are glowing in more ways than ever. I'm so glad that you and I have connected over the last
me too, mate.
The last month or two. You know, there's something so special when you find a pure connection. And
absolutely.
You know, it's only going to grow and build stronger.
Yeah.
But man, everything you've opened up with today, your vulnerability, your strength, your courage, your determination, your why, your purpose, your direction, your mentality, your perspective. Thanks for sharing.
Oh, thanks for holding space, and right back at you, mate. You shared a lot as well today.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate that, man. But dude, thank you so much for your time. I'll have all your socials in the bottom of this podcast in the notes. So they can everyone can go and find you,
Yeah.
and they can follow along with your fucking epic journey
Yeah.
and just realize how much of an amazing person you are inside and out.
Love you, man.
Cheers, brother. But I thank you for everyone for joining today. This episode has been wholesome. It's been awesome. I've learned a lot, said a lot, and I hope you can all grab something from this and sort of move it towards your own life. 2, lean into your own journey and your self-development, your perspective shifts, whatever it is. If you're going through a tough time, you're not alone. We all have our struggles every single day. Jack just opened up today about some things he doesn't even talk about. I'm sure there's something what you can do as well. So remember to be kind to yourself. And this is everyone's first time at doing life as well. So, hold the space for yourself. Have some gratitude. Just remind yourself that you're doing the best you can with what you have. You are so loved. You're worthy of everything in this life. And, I got you back always. Please don't ever be afraid to reach out. I'll always hold space for everyone I can. So thank you. And this is just your daily reminder that you're fucking awesome, man. Keep going. Keep going. I believe you. I see you. The life is yours. It's just up to you to go and make it. So once again, I believe in you. I love you guys so much. Thank you for all the ongoing support and love and messages. I read everything. I reply to everything. Once again, thank you so much. Cheers, guys.